let's just say you spoke like this with a bit of an Italian accent, but very, very fluent at the same
would have
time.
been
Like people can
charming.
understand you fine. It's not a problem. Would the situation have been the same?
Hello.
Konnichiwa.
Ciao.
I'm here with two wonderful characters, two wonderful people. You are
Sonia.
E Davide.
from?
Italy, Rome.
Italy. Oh, I was supposed to speak English. I was speaking Italian.
Oh, that's okay. You're from?
Torino, Italy, north of Italy.
So Rome, Torino, or Turin, I think it's in
Turin.
Turin in English. And we're going to be speaking in English, and then God knows what's going to happen, right? So
Vediamo, può succedere di tutto.
Exactly. We all speak a few languages, but we wanted to focus on one aspect of language learning, which is pronunciation, right?
Right.
Let's start with Sonia. Sonia, can you tell us, how do you feel when you speak English with an American accent? Do you feel cool?
I feel cool.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Cool. I love like the vowels. I love how I can say me, May. It's gonna be May. It's gonna be May. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't do that in Italian. Not really.
It's true. Italian actually is a very I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a poor language, but sound inventory wise, we only have basically 5 vowels, right?
Well,
or maybe 7.
Yeah, 7.
Depending
on the variety,
right.
yeah.
You even made I think a course about Italian pronunciation. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, yeah, English has like 20 vowels or something like that.
56. I think 56.
56 vowels. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's difficult for an Italian generally to speak English well, because we have a, e, o, u. Well, in English, if a, o, a, etc., right?
Yeah.
But well, first of all, the question is, how did you get to speak so well? To both of you.
Well, I think it's like because I love music, and I've always liked the English language. I don't know why. I think rap music. I thought it was cool, and I wanted to like. I'm really not sure. I was little, but it's not because my parents are from an English-speaking country. Not at all. It was just me. And I was little, and I was like, yeah, I want to be good.
Yeah. I have kind of a similar story, because for me it was TV shows, films, a lot of YouTube videos, because it was the early days of YouTube, I remember, and just a lot of listening. And I was really into it, which I think is what made a difference in both of our cases, right? We really in your situation as well.
I would add that it's true that it really makes a difference when you like something, of course.
Yeah.
However, I think in my case, maybe it's in your case as well, it's not just that I wanted to sound like an American. I wanted to be like an American. I wanted to blend in. I remember that I was watching all these movies, and then after watching the movie, I was reciting these lines constantly, repeating the lines. I also took a look at the script of these movies with Speak Up. You remember you had these back in the day. I don't know. Well,
nerd.
Beep.
Such a nerd.
I am a nerd. We
all are. Just kidding.
I confess to it.
Kind of have to be one.
But in a good sense, right? Like, it depends. Like, you got the bad nerd and you got the good nerd, right?
Are you saying there are bad nerds? Luca, you can't say these things on YouTube.
It's not politically correct. Anyways. My point is that it was, for me, an identity thing. It's not just like speaking well, but when I speak English, I feel a little bit different, right? Don't you feel a little bit different than when you speak English, when you speak Italian? The way you talk, the way you use your hands, the things you say. Have you ever thought about that?
I think it depends a lot on the people you interact with in that language, and also, how the people are in general, because you tend to become more like them, right? And so, like in Italian, maybe, I don't know, you guys are from Rome. There's a very different sense of humor in Rome.
If my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. And
it's very different than if you interact with people from the US and you sort of kind of mimic them.
I think you're right. I think when you speak any language, I think a bunch of people you had contact with activate in your brain. You're the sum of the people you spend time with.
Yeah, don't they say that you're like the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? I think it's kind of the same thing with languages. Your identity in a language is sort of the average of the people you either spend most of your time with, or maybe even like just listen to, because,
Absolutely.
You kind of imitate people also that you listen to a lot,
However, provocative question. Do you believe in talent when it comes to speaking, sounding almost like a native, or do you think anybody can do it? From the perspective of a teacher, because you're an English teacher, right?
How can I give you weapons? You know I can't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Especially when it comes to pronunciation. It's anybody can improve. But if you're, I don't know how to say that. Like, if
In
you
a
have a
diplomatic way,
skill,
right?
if you like music, for example, like it's easier for some people.
I agree. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the same. And I think it's something that the problem with saying this is that it can discourage some people because they think, oh, just don't have an ear. The truth is, you can always get better. You can always improve. And also, you have to set realistic goals when it comes to pronunciation and just being clear and, being understandable and understood is the most important thing. But then if you really want to become extremely good, then it's like with any sport or anything that you learn, a little bit of talent can add what maybe
Yeah.
you can't have just through work.
Mhm.
But work can get you very
A
far,
long
I
way.
think.
Yeah, I agree.
I still don't sound native after years and years and years of studying, but I'm pretty comfortable with my level of English level, and I'm happy. And I feel like my accent's good, but it's not like when I go to the US. After like 5 minutes of conversation, most people are like, "Oh, I like your accent. Where are you from?"
It's very cute.
That's very cute.
Well, that's
The trauma of
Yeah, but is it so important to sound like a native? Like, for example, when it comes to speaking a foreign language, of course, we would like, when someone says, "Oh, your accent is cute," then you stab, right? Feel like it's a stab because you say, "Okay, I like to sound like a native," or maybe it's an ego thing. But come to think of it, why is it that you want to sound like a native? Have you ever thought about that? Is that a question of ego, of identity? Do you feel cool when you speak like a native? What has it brought about in terms of
I feel
experiences?
cool, but I
Yes.
don't think it's like identity. For example, I love American English, but I've never wanted to live in the US. I've never had the
Well, you did,
American
right?
dream.
No, you did.
Yeah, because I was married to an American, but
Right.
I didn't really want to live there. I wanted to live in Japan. I've always had the
just happened.
Japanese dream.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't want to apply for a green card. Like I
Wait,
never
hold,
applied.
hold the phone. So you had Japanese dream, but you found yourself on the other side of the planet. Like, for
I
whatever
know.
reason, you found yourself living in the States.
Love. It's because I met
Love.
my ex-husband here in Rome.
Okay.
Then we moved together to Japan, and then like Japan was my dream. It wasn't his dream. So
Right.
at one point we had to go back.
Okay.
But I love the American entertainment, music, style, but I don't have the American dream. So I don't think it's like I want to be American. I truly think I love the language. It's so cool. It's like
In my case, actually, well, I completely understand you. In my case, I really wanted to be like an American. I wanted to live in the United States. Now my dream is completely different. Like, I've completely changed as a person. I'm not interested in. I'm not. Hey guys, Americans, I love you, lovely country and everything. But it just happened in the moment when I really had this burning desire to sound like an American, be like an American, blend in an American society. If I had traveled and moved there, then that was the moment where I got the accent, right? But now it doesn't matter anymore, but the accent stayed with me, So I kind of created an identity in my mind, like the American identity that is part of me when I speak. But at the end of the day, I think that the desire does count in my case. When people ask me, how do you pick up an accent? It's always a number of factors that align. It's not just one. There's many things. Yeah. But the desire of blending in for me was important, and that kind of made a difference, I think.
For me, it was a desire. What kind of desire? I want it to be good.
And it's just fun. I mean, for me, it's just a fun thing to imitate an accent. And we were talking about it in the video we made, which wasn't a very serious video. I don't know if it's ever going to get published.
I don't know if it gets published. Link below.
But it's just a fun thing for me and for people like us to imitate accent. But it's not for everyone. Some people just don't care. Some people just want to communicate, and and it's fine as long as people understand you and there are no hindrances to the way you speak, which make it really hard for natives to understand you.
I agree. However, I have to also add that, as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty sure this has happened to you as well. All sorts of things happen when you speak a language well, right? Maybe you're like in line and then you just an example. I made friends with Garrett. Garrett is one of my best friends, American friends from Philadelphia. And what happened is that we were sitting, it was Trastevere, we're this nice, lovely neighborhood in the summer. There were a lot of people sitting around this fountain at the center of the square. And all of a sudden, I hear a loud burp, right? Blah. So I turn around and say, oh, that was one loud burp. And that sentence pronounced that way, created the entire thing, the entire experience. Oh, where are you from? You sound like an American, blah, blah, blah. And then we became friends.
How did you know he wasn't Italian?
What do you mean?
Like you heard?
No, I heard.
The burp had an American accent.
Okay,
a distinct American burp.
This is a good question. To give you a little bit more of a background, I heard before I was hearing the conversation, obviously they were like American. So when she burped, then I turned around and I spoke to them directly in English. And that is what generated are we? And so many other things like had happened. Just another example in a romantic sense. For example, I was at in Prague, and I heard there were three cute French girls at the hostel that were sitting there. And I asked him, est-ce que vous êtes français? The stupidest question ever. Of course they're French. They're speaking French. But sometimes you just need even a stupid question.
Did it work?
It did. She became my girlfriend for 5 years. So
oh, wow.
So yeah, so she was. But I mean, the thing is that sometimes, and this is also a social thing, when we tend to have a lot of filters. Well, so for example, you see a cute guy, a cute girl, should I talk to her? I'm talking about romantic, but not only. And you just talk, and all sorts of things happen. Speaking languages with a good accent brought about so many major things in my life that I say it's definitely worth it. Whether people can speak with a great accent, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
And you attribute that to the accent specifically. Like if you had been fluent, but your accent would have, I can't conjugate this the right way.
Yeah, but how bad?
Let's just say you spoke like this with a bit of an Italian accent, but very, very fluent at the same time. Like people can understand you fine. It's not a problem. Would the situation have been the same, you think?
Well, it depends. Well, if you're talking about, it really depends on the situation, on the person. I don't know, because I don't live in a parallel world and universe where this is had happened. However, I think the experience will be different. Because if you speak Italian, if you speak English like this, hey, how's it going? It would not have been the same, right? So
it's a me.
It's a conversation starter. Anyway.
I can speak like this. I've tried. For example, I've approached someone and speak, hey, how's it going? And then to have fun. And then while we're having a conversation, I started speaking like this. They were like, what?
So you start very strong and progressively gets a little bit better and better and better. And then by the end of the 10-minute conversation, you're basically a native.
Yeah. And they were saying, I remember there was a guy who was slightly drunk. An American guy said, this conversation is odd. You sound strange, sound different. Like at the beginning, you sound like an Italian. Now and he was really confused. And all sorts of things happen.
Polyglot fun.
It can be fun. But
strange idea of fun.
I think ultimately it's an enriching experience. I mean, at least for me, but I'm pretty sure this has happened to you guys, that people ask why you speak so well, because there's not a lot of people who speak languages well. And when you have attention to detail and when you speak, I think the sound of a language, the music behind the language talks to the heart of people. You connect with them in a different way. The connection is different. Yeah. So they ask you stuff like why. They are intrigued. They want to know more, right? And this drives the conversation, and then the rest is history, as they say. In a lot of
5 years later,
5 years,
you're still with that person.
Two kids later. Yeah, 2 children later. No, I'm kidding.
No. Luca doesn't have any kids. We can say that.
I hope so.
You hope so. What?
When it comes to 1-year-old Dante, Pierre, you are the father.
You never know. Okay, well, we're gonna cut that.
That's kind of awkward.
Anyway, thank you. I think there's more to it. Meaning, we can talk about this for hours and hours, but we wanted to give you a perspective on 3 different people, 3 Italians, giving you a perspective of what it means to speak a language with a good accent, but also the limits. We have to be realistic about that. I still remember to this point, there was a student of mine. I've also worked as an accent coach or pronunciation coach, but it's more like accent. And you know about these courses of accent production, right? So this guy comes to me and says, I want to speak like an American. You've been living in America for 25 years. You had a very, very strong Indian accent. And that did not change because realistically, we're very good at learning things, but we're not very good at unlearning things, right? So once you have a bad accent, if you speak English like this for 30 years, speaking English like this is going to be a little bit different, right? Difficult, right?
Yeah.
You agree.
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah, yeah.
So
And it's also a matter, I mean, you wanted to end the video, but you know,
no, you can add.
I think an interesting thing is that it's hard for some people to let go of their accent because it's really rooted in their identity. And I had a student of Italian. She was actually a second generation Italian. And she spoke pretty well, but she couldn't do the Italian R, not because she physically couldn't make the sound. She could, but she found it so awkward to say Rosa instead of Rosa. Rosa. She had this British R. And she just found it impossible because it was so weird for her. And I found that really fascinating.
She didn't want to be the one, like, you know, the American who goes to the restaurants like, can I get spaghetti? Like, she didn't want to be that girl.
Like super Italian, you mean?
Like super Italian, but fake?
Yeah, maybe not. And also she was, I think, in her 50s or something. So maybe, I don't know, that makes it even harder. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting for me to see. And some people just can't let go of their identity and embrace this new weird way of speaking, new sounds, new intonations. It's just...
Do it, try.
Do it, try it.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. You're actually, this is a very important point. Stephen Krashen is a famous linguist that talks about that. Basically, there's a PDF that you can download. You just write something, I don't remember the exact title, but it goes along the lines of a conjecture on accent acquisition in second language learning or something like that. And he says something really interesting. He says, basically, people can speak with a good accent. They just choose not to for psychological reasons. Because, and this goes back to, by the way, something we all share. We're going to talk about this in a second, that we belong to a tribe, whether we want it or not. We are all Italian. We can speak a bunch of languages, but we're still culturally Italian, and we identify subconsciously or unconsciously or non-consciously as the Italian tribe. Now, what happens is that when you learn a new language, then you have to embrace another tribe. And when you want to embrace another tribe through sound, by speaking well, then you have this resistance that a lot of people have when it comes to, oh, this guy sounds strange. In fact, we're all mocked at school for sounding different, right? So some people want to conform, saying, okay, they're going to mock me, so I'm going to speak like this, like them, so that they don't mock me, right, anymore. But then my desire of sounding American was so strong that I didn't care what the others said. I kept speaking like this, and in fact, in the end, I started speaking differently. But this thing of the tribe is really important. Some people never let go because they have this filter. They call it the affective filter, right? So we all, I think, the way we are, we like imitating. We have things in common. We like imitating, other people. But sometimes we let ourselves go. Sometimes you have to let yourself go to embrace another identity. You have to let go of the filters that hold us, like we have to be conformed to the society, right?
Yeah.
I think this really, at the end of the day, yes, the sound, the ear, maybe some people pick up sounds, etc. But at the end of the day, I think it's a psychological thing. We let go and we just speak like the way we want to speak, independently from what other people say.
Yeah.
I don't know if this makes sense.
I think to me, it's definitely an element. I wouldn't say it's the only thing. I don't think it's that you only have the psychological element, because you have the sounds and everything else. So maybe you don't have that fear, but it's still hard for you to get a good accent. But it is like a filter that makes everything harder downstream.
Exactly. Well, guys, girls, that's it for now from Rome. Thank you very much for listening. We hope you found this useful, and we'll see you in the next video on YouTube. Ciao.
See you next time, guys.